And welcome back to Cottage Talk. I'm Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Max Cohen and Mike Gregg. This is our post-match show of the 0-0 draw for Fulham against West Ham. It's another 0-0 draw. We did a full-time show, and we talked about, do you look at this as a point game and 2 points lost, and are we disappointed? I look at it that way, and again, it is a point game, but it really is both because they really needed a win. So we'll talk about that. We'll delve into a little bit more detail as we break down this match. Before doing anything else, I have to welcome my co-host back to the show. Mr. Cohen, how you doing? You looking forward to doing the show?
Yeah, Master, looking forward to, as you said, off air, ripping off the Band-Aid, just getting it over with.
That's right. Let's get it out.
I think I was pretty upset at full time.
Okay.
And I think maybe I've become more realistic in the hours since, and thinking that, the season really ended last Saturday when we drew West Brom, and everything else up until, May is just us saving face and fighting to the death. But
well, you and I disagree on that.
So I think really, is there really a big reason to get upset about not winning this match when, the die's already cast? So that's how I'm looking at it now, perhaps.
Okay. Well, we agree to disagree on the big picture, but that's what makes us all Fulham supporters. We all have different opinions. Mr. Gregg, how you doing?
Yeah, hi there, Russ. Hi there, Max. Yeah, looking forward to doing the show. Thank you for inviting me on. I got a bit of microphone envy, I think, there. I've been the one who's missing out.
Join the club, Mike.
No, it's an interesting time. And before we start, Russ, I will say that, I've done a couple of pods with Friends of Fulham guys.
Yep.
And,
you guys doing a great job, by the way, I want to say.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say about all the pods, really. I mean, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, we did sort of dive into doing a filmed version, didn't we, with me, you and Dave, and that was early days.
Yes,
and we were a bit ahead of the game there, weren't you, Russ? Really, But now it's everyone doing it. But no, I'm glad. Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it and what's going on, really.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to focus mostly on the match, but obviously the big picture topics will come up as well. But Max, I'll go to you first. Just give me your initial reaction. Well, I shouldn't say initial reaction. Your overall thoughts on this 0-0 draw. What was going through your mind watching it? It sounds like you kind of already have made up your mind on Fulham season, which is fine because I understand you thought it ended with the West Brom match. But let's just get your thoughts overall watching this match.
Just, in a micro level, it was much better than the Leicester City match. And I think that deserves talking about because that was a depressing moment after the Leicester match when it seemed that the attack was misfiring and the defense was making errors. I think the defense is much improved. And, I was arguing with my brother about this. I said we deserve to win this match. He said a draw was a fair result. But I think given our pressure in the second half, we're the only side who are going to get that winner.
That's right.
In this match. And that was positive to see. I think, West Ham are in great form. And we made them look average, as you and Amelia said on the show yesterday. I was really impressed with Loftus-Cheek. I thought this was probably his best match for us. Of course, no finishing touch, and that's what's going to make him a failure at Fulham. But I think he showed a lot more in the build-up play and getting in better positions. But, overall, I have to take issue with Scott Parker here. I think his game plan was perfect up until an hour in. And once you're 60 minutes in a match that's winnable, you have to go for it. And he said just as much in midweek. He said, draws are no good right now. There's no point getting 1 point. We need 3 points. And bafflingly, he waited until the 79th minute to throw in Maja and Mitrovic. That's just not good enough because, as we all realize.
Yeah, we talked about that on full time. Very good point.
Getting points is not going to keep us in the Premier League. We need wins. And this is a match that was there for the taking. At 60 minutes, West Ham made a couple of subs. They looked out of the match, disinterested, off the pace. This is where you go for the killer blow. And the fact that he waited another 20 minutes to put in, our best goal-scoring threats just didn't make any sense to me. And that's what's going to take us down this year is we're a nearly team. We're nearly there. We play good football. We don't get a goal.
There. I know. I understand.
We do good business in the transfer market. We don't really get a striker. Everything is nearly. We can play good in spells. It's never 90 minutes. And that's why we're going to be in the championship next season. But that's the nature of the Premier League. We're just not good enough.
Okay. Mike, before I get your take, I'm curious your thoughts on what Max just shared, and I'll share mine and then get your thoughts on it because we talked about this on full time. Some of the decisions, because again, I listened to Scott Parker's video. I watched it, and he had full praise, and he talked about his team and all that. But when I go back to it, and we talk about that we needed the victory, and he knows that as well. When David Moyes made his substitution in the 55th minute, this to me was the time to think about changing it then, Mike. And around the 60th minute, that's when Emilio said, and I agree with him, because it's almost Moyes was trying to counter what we were doing. And then, okay, fine, then you need to make a move yourself. And he waited an additional 20 minutes. I think, again, if I'm going to second guess Parker, this is where it is, Mike, because we had everything else going for us, but we could not finish. That's what it comes down to. As Max said, it's about almost being there, but not finishing the deal. And it comes in the final third. What are your thoughts about what Max shared? And then we'll talk about your thoughts.
Well, I thought Max was spot on, really. I haven't got much to go beyond that. It was everything's just that little bit far away. We just can't grab it. We're just missing those shots. We're delaying a little bit too long for the subs, and anyone who followed me yesterday on Twitter, when I saw that team, I was furious. No strikers. Got 2 on the bench.
Yep.
You don't really know until you kick off, but Reed was out on the wing again when maybe he could have played up front. These are games we've got to win.
Yes.
And, in all the comments yesterday it was, well, okay, I can see what he's trying to do. He's going to hold out, try and nick a goal, and then probably go quite defensive because that's his mindset.
Yes.
Fair play. We played well. We were the better side over the 90 minutes, and a win would have been the right result. But and Loftus-Cheek, again, being very critical of, he probably was the best player yesterday.
Yes.
But it still wasn't quite enough, was it?
Exactly. We're just not quite there.
Passes astray and this kind of stuff. I suppose I was surprised Tete's died, but then again, with 4 at the back, he's probably the better option. And Grease being dropped, possibly he's been quiet the last few games. But I just thought in a game, we're on a run now, we have to win. We're hearing the same message from Scott, and even after yesterday, we have to win. We have to win games. We have to win games. But and I've done some tweeting today, some stats and stuff. The team doesn't have enough goals in it. These are players who will get you 3, 4, 5 goals maybe in a whole season, and we're asking them to win. So even at their best, we're going to get 1 goal maybe, possibly 2 if we really like it. But we'll take Cavallero, and we'll probably talk about it. I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead. But he's had 2 chances in games recently, almost carbon copy.
Yes.
And they're not hitting the net because he's not a striker. That's not his body shape. He is not going to score like that. He's a winger playing in that position. You need a striker in that position, somebody who's used to scoring even at schoolboy level and then under 21. And so the instinct is there. I know that the goal is just there off my shoulder. I know, that kind of thing. And incredibly frustrated with that lineup.
Okay.
And then the subs were, on Twitter, 60 minutes onwards, Moyes made changes, as you said.
That's right.
But again, that's Parker being possibly reactive again and not grasping it while we're in control.
That's right.
And then if you're going to throw on 2 strikers, give them more than 10 minutes and a couple of chances.
Totally agree, Mike. Totally agree. This is
missed opportunity yesterday.
Absolutely, and that's great that you mentioned that. And you actually transitioned us really nice to talk about the starting 11. And Max, I want to get your thoughts on what Mike just shared, because I really want to start here. Because when you look at it, as Mike said, Cavallero is really not a striker. So you have Mitrovic on the bench. Maja, I wasn't expecting to start. I expected him to be a part, which he was. But here's the thing. The way that they were set up, the change of shape I thought was a positive move. But Mike just brought up a negative. Cavallero is out there as your striker, and it just isn't good enough. So what were your thoughts when you saw, was it somewhere to Mike that is thinking like, well, what's going on here? Because we need goals and we need a striker on there. But I will just mention this. Do you think that part of the reason why he plays Cavallero, and I've heard this and I want your take on this, instead of Mitro, is that Mitro does not fit the style of play that Parker wants to play, the fast pace. Again, he might not be fast enough for the way he ultimately wants to play. that might be part of the problem with Mitrovic is I don't think he fits the way Parker wants. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in that respect, but it's clearly not worked. And we
no,
stagnated.
It hasn't worked anyways.
Yeah, I mean, since the 1-1 draw against Liverpool, that's a period where I think people thought we'd kick on. We've absolutely stagnated, if not gone back since then. And that was kind of the start. You could argue it was the Leicester away match, but that was kind of the start of that experiment, the kind of false nine, Cavalier. And it's not gone well. We've not gotten wins. That much is clear. And Parker has to look at that and say it's not working. Now, to be completely fair, when we put Mitrovic in the starting lineup, it wasn't a whole lot different. Okay, it wasn't a whole lot different because Mitrovic, I don't think, is the answer in this current form either. So I think what Mike said was probably the most intelligent thing I've heard in this discourse in a long time, which is maybe give it to Bobby Decordova-Reid to be that number 9. He's our top scorer. He's played in that position before with Cardinals.
He has. That's actually a good point. He has played in that position.
I personally hadn't thought about that. It's clear Parker hasn't thought about that because that just seems to be a more natural fit, right? Because the current position of Decordova-Reid, let's talk about starting 11. It was a back 4, which I was happy about. And it's Russ. You've been calling for that, so I think that's good news.
Yeah.
But I think Decordova-Reid wasn't quite playing in that right midfield role as I'd expect him to. It was a bit more, maybe right mid in attack, but in defense he dropped back pretty deep, which meant he was constrained and he wasn't truly playing with freedom, where I think is his best role. So it was a back 4, but wasn't a truly Decordova-Reid still had to do defensive responsibilities more so than he would have liked, in my opinion. Because in my opinion, Decordova-Reid was not an attacking entity against West Ham. He just didn't really show up, and that's because he had to do some defending on that wing. And then let's talk about Anguissa being dropped. I think he looked tired last couple of matches. I didn't have a massive problem with it. And I really liked him off the bench in a way. I think that could be an exciting prospect.
But he came on very late again.
It was too late. I agree with Mike. You give 2 strikers 10 minutes. They can't work with that. You're not in the groove of the match in such a short span of time. But I do think they'll be limited. I do think Maja or Mitrovic or the combination of them or both of them will likely start against Everton. And I think we'll probably see the last of Cavalier up top.
Well, that's kind of where I want to go. And Mike, I want to go back to you and feel free to share your thoughts, what Max just shared. And I said this on Full Time, and I want your take on this. Change of shape. Did it work ultimately? And can it work? That's the bigger picture. Can it work moving forward against teams around us? And that you can always revert back to 3 at the back. Can this work for them? Can this be a way forward if they can find ways to get goals? I'm curious your view on this, on the change of shape.
Well, I mean, every game you've got to take in its own entity, haven't you?
Exactly.
I'm a fan of 3 centre-backs. Used to manage it when
I remember.
I do like it, and played the right way, it can be quite attacking, but it can also, if you do it the wrong way, really be proper 5 defenders and 3 midfield in front or even 4. So it can be very defensive or very attacking, and we saw Parker do that last year.
Yep.
I think it was the Charlton game at the end when he basically only had 3 defenders. Then he started the next game with, I think, Knockaert and Cav as the wing backs, and that didn't work. And then
that didn't work.
So, it's horses for courses, isn't it, sometimes?
Yep.
But, I mean, there has been a backlash against playing the 5, 3 centre-backs. And so, Tete, it did work, didn't it? Because we were the better side yesterday.
That's right.
He fought against West Ham. That would be the right thing to do. One of the differences we don't seem to do, which we did under Slav when we played 4 at the back, is the 2 centre-backs go wide and McDonald would drop in the middle, and you've almost got three centre-backs.
That's a good point,
And Reid doesn't do it. He did it a little bit in the last game.
A little.
But yesterday I didn't really see that, where he comes in and becomes that extra defender. And because we're not building out from the back in a similar style. So I suspect following yesterday, he might continue with the 4. I really wanted to see the 2 strikers start up top next game, because it is a must-win. And I don't, this season, I don't really take into account whether it's a home game or an away game. For us, they're all away games. And it's just the travelling that the guys have got to do. And if you look at tables, they're completely different, aren't they? Home results, I think it's shown in all the top 5 leagues, are very different this year compared to other places. So whether it's home or away, to me, it doesn't matter. I'm sure we will see some changes for next week.
Okay, let me go back to you, and then I want to go to Max, because in the change of shape, it's funny because I heard all this commentary at halftime about how we were lacking the fullbacks getting forward, and maybe that had something to do with the change of shape. But I thought we saw a little bit more of that. Obviously, in the second half, the crossing wasn't good enough. But I want to talk about this because I noticed a lot more of this. The passing of Tosin and the passing of Anderson was more forward-thinking, Mike. I'm curious your view on this, because it looked like it to me that they were taking more of an aggressive approach instead of just passing it back and forth. They were looking for that pass. And Tosin, actually, I thought had some really nice passes.
Yeah, well, I think because you've got the extra defender, if you like, at the back, if you're playing just flat four, they're looking, and you've got the runners. We keep going on. Everyone keeps going on. We've got runners. That's why Mitro can't play. Well, use them then. Go long and run down the channels if that's what you're going to do. And maybe they were trying to do that a little bit more yesterday. I mean, Loftus-Cheek was almost a second striker, wasn't he? It was quite
almost, yeah.
And when you look at the heat maps for like Tete and Robinson, Robinson especially was almost like a left winger at times. And if you look at the average positions, there's absolutely a massive gap behind him. He's well over that halfway line. Tete a little bit further back, but yeah, a little. The passing there. I mean, those two centre backs are decent. Tosin's got a really good pass on him. I think sometimes he's still young, he's still learning. But yeah, a little bit more longer than usual. Playing Reed and Lamina, maybe that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few. I was looking at some stats today for formations, and we do create more chances when we play, or our expected goals is actually higher when we play with four at the back.
That's interesting.
There you are.
Well, maybe there's something to that. Max, what are your thoughts on all this? Because again, it's funny. We'll go through it. The second half was much better than the first half, and I think something was said at halftime, and you could see a change in the second half. But I wanted to focus on the center backs because I just thought that they were more forward thinking instead of what we were used to with Parker Ball. I thought it was a little bit better than that. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a great point about Anderson and Tosin playing it out of the back, because it also has to do with the movement of the players in front of them, as you guys mentioned. I think Loftus-Cheek was excellent in terms of receiving those balls from the center backs and then turning, whereas we're so used to seeing just square balls across the back. They're actually going forward, but it wasn't necessarily long balls, just kind of incisive, penetrative passing, which was what you need. And once Loftus-Cheek, turned and could attack the back four, he could, pass out wide, make things happen in the middle. Didn't necessarily have that scoring touch, which we all know, but I think it was just more positive from us. And then I was really impressed with Anderson playing those, cross field balls, just pinging them
exactly.
Robinson and Tete at times. That was a great outlet. So I thought there was more urgency. I think you're right. Something was said at halftime, but I think, Mike mentioned this at the start. When we get into that final third, there's just no confidence. And as a supporter, I never really fancied us to score. I never backed us because you could just see the players, and I don't know what it is. They just don't have that know-how or that, familiarity, finding the goal or making the right decision. It's always, a little bit too slow, or the run isn't quite there, or the finish is just miscued. And it goes back to what I was thinking, 2 seasons ago, when we just could not defend for our lives. And,
this is the exact opposite.
Exact, but it's not. It's the exact opposite, but it's on the other side of the pitch. We just seem to always make defensive errors and switch off.
Okay.
Back in 2018-19. This time around, we're in the final third. The same thing seemed to happen. We just don't have the instinct.
Way to look at it.
It's odd because in many ways, the defending is the harder part. And we absolutely mastered clean sheets in the Premier League, which isn't talked about enough. I say this a lot. The fact that our defense is keeping clean sheets, and it's not even really a big deal. That's the first time we mentioned it in this podcast, is that we kept a clean sheet.
Yep.
That's remarkable. But, without the attack, it really doesn't mean anything.
Okay, interesting. Mike, I want to go back to you because Max brings up an interesting way to look at it. We're not leaking goals, but we can't score goals. So I'm going to ask you, when you're watching this, what the heck is going wrong? I know what you're saying, the lack of strikers on the pitch, but the players out there, what has been the issue that they're having in the final third?
Well, I think you may agree with this. I mean, I don't. When you watch a game, we never seem to get enough bodies in the box when we're actually in flow in attack. You watch another side against us. And yes, we kept a clean sheet, but they always seem to have 2-3 players in the box.
That's a great point.
We get in there and we just seem to have one, and that's been an ongoing issue.
Yeah, that's not a new issue.
But it's the decisive balls, isn't it? It's the crossing. Our crossing is pretty appalling. But then
it's horrible.
Yes, I know Cav scored with a header the other week. Okay, but Robinson's crossing. What they're crossing? Who are they crossing to? These guys are all nippy wingers, And if Loftus-Cheek is in the middle, then fair enough. But sometimes he's the one who's putting the ball through and making a cross. But we haven't got, and I know he's injured, but he did get dropped.
It's Tom Kearney.
We don't have a TC player.
That's right.
We don't have a player who will decisively put that ball through the eye of a needle to a player running on. You don't see that. It's individuals trying to make chances. Lookman will try and beat a couple of players and run into a cul-de-sac. And, the two chances yesterday where we should have scored was the Cav shot, okay, and then Loftus-Cheek as well. But that for me is the main issue. Not enough bodies, and we just haven't got anyone who can just play a player through. And if you're going to play with runners like Lookman, like Cav, then and Bobby Reid as well, then you've got to play that way. I mean, look at last week when the ball came to Mitro and he backheeled it, and you've got runners. You've got runners. This is what you need.
Oh, it's great.
We don't have a focal point, and I'm going to keep banging on the drum, but you need a central striker for everyone to run off of, and that's the issue for me.
Okay, Max, your thoughts on that? Twofold. Not having a focal point, and also, do Fulham miss Tom Kearney? I think Mike nailed that. I think they do, because they're missing that player to really unlock things and really create. So your thoughts on both of that?
Yeah, I agree on the central striker. And on Kearney, I agree to a certain extent. I think it kind of, it's the old adage, a player gets, millions of times better the longer they're out injured, And Kearney, let's remember, Kearney wasn't setting the league on fire, before he got injured, right? And maybe he was carrying that injury. But I think of the West Brom at home, that match, he was excellent. I'm struggling to think of other matches where he played that well. And I'm actually thinking the Newcastle away match when he started and Mitro started, and the attack was just anemic. But I do think we need a player like Kearney, exactly.
No, Mike's definitely spot on that.
We're missing a creative midfielder.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest weakness of the side in many respects, because the chances we're creating aren't high quality, and we need someone to thread the balls through. I completely agree. But the thing about Kearney is I worry he'll slow down the pace of play.
Well, that's the whole thing, and that's the other side of this, along with Mitro, because I think there's this issue that Parker has. He wants us to play fast, but do players like Kearney and Mitro slow us down in his mind? Not really for us. I'm talking about, does he fear them slowing the match down?
Yeah, I think that's why Kearney didn't feature as much even before he went out. But I was talking to my brother earlier. I said, we need a player like Kearney, but better, because I love Tom Kearney. I think he's a club legend, but he's not going to get it done week in, week out in the Premier League. And I think he's either late 20s or early 30s now. He's not the youngest, guy around. We need to upgrade in that position. Again, not something that was addressed over the summer, or not addressed appropriately, because I think people might have seen Loftus-Cheek as the answer to that. Yep. And he obviously has not come good to the extent that people thought he would. So that's another glaring, weakness in this team.
Okay, excellent. Coming up next, we're going to break down this match with our analysis of the first and second half, and we will end with man of the match. Okay, Mike, I'm going to go to you. And again, not many moments in the first half, so I'll just go for an overall analysis from you. Your view of the first half for Fulham against West Ham.
Well, we started well, and we had a lot of the ball, and we were the better side. We had a few half chances early on, some shots blocked. So yeah, it was a really good start, and we had that. For me, the one best chance was the Cav chance, but it was just powder puff, attack wise. You had the ball a lot, and but you were never convinced. Max said it. You're not convinced we're going to score. Where are we going to score? On the flip side as well, I'd say how disappointing West Ham were. And there's a lot of talk about how we are unlucky or how we should be higher up in the league. But you have to win the games. You have to score the goals to be there. West Ham have been doing it. But it shows, although it's a really difficult league, there's an awful lot of teams there who are average, above average. And we just need to find a way of matching them and winning those games, because I don't think one striker is the answer. I think it's a style of play, some tactics as well, to make us one of those top half teams, if you like. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was one of our best halves for quite a while. I know we've had some decent results, but actually it was the closest we've had, I thought, to actually dominate in a game where a manager of the opposing team had to make changes.
Right, look at it that way.
So yeah, it was positive. For all my negativity on the lineup, it was a good half. But same old problems.
Same old problems, Mike. And very good analysis. And, it makes me think about what's going on with Fulham because, like you said, we're looking for someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But it's, it's more than that. It's also tactical. But I want to just follow up with you on this, and then I'll go to Max because I want his analysis. As we look at the change of shape and the way that they played, I could even go to the Leicester City match in the second half. We seem to be more on the front foot. And, I had someone critique me and Emilio saying, and I said, I thought Fulham were taking it to West Ham. What I meant was the intent was there compared to the three at the back when we're really just countering. Would you agree that the intent was still there? It's still a little bit of Parker ball, but I think the intent was different, that we were actually trying to take it to them instead of just sitting back.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we did, that first 15 minutes, we were by far the better team and we were attacking them. It wasn't, I've been careful not to use Parker ball recently. I don't see it that way. It's not like last year.
Right, it's not.
No, I'm not disputing that he's going out to win games. That's. But I just think fundamentally his overall tactics aren't good enough, and the players aren't good enough to score the goals.
Well, it's conservative, Mike. It's just a conservative way that he is. A
little bit. I mean, Tosin, our free kicks and our corners are not brilliant. I mean, Tosin had a header yesterday where he could, So yeah, we were taking it to him first. That's what I mean. We were doing okay, but it just not enough.
Okay. Max, your view of the first half. Do you agree with Mike? And do you agree with me that, again, it was really we were taking it to him, but as Mike said, it's not the all-out attack that some teams have. But in Parker's way, this was more attacking.
Yeah, because we freed up more space in the midfield and attack by switching forward to the back. Sure. The biggest thing for me is, did Fabianski have to make a save all match? A tough save. I cannot think of one. And that's what it comes down to. We have these periods of pressure, and it's actually nice possession, and it's easy on the eye, and the commentators will give us credit and say,
they were.
Fulham don't look like a relegation side. Look how they're playing.
I heard it just like you did.
Yeah, I know. We don't have a single shot on target. That's actually threatening. That's what it comes down to. I think Lookman had a decent opportunity first half. They drag wide.
Yep.
As you mentioned, Tosin had a header that went over. Are we ever really threatening the goalkeeper? And that's what it comes down to. And the answer is no.
Okay, very good. All right, well, let's switch to the second half. And there's more going on because I think, like I was talking to you guys earlier, I think that Parker had in his mind that he wanted to – he said something to them at the half because they came out with more energy. And Max, we kept hearing it that Fulham looked like they had more energy on the pitch. You could see it. There was more intent there in the second half. And listen, it starts right off the bat. You have the free kick from Cavallero in the 49th minute. You have a shot by Bobby Decordova-Reid again in the 50th minute. That's followed up by a miss by Ruben Loftus-Cheek in the 53rd minute. And right after that, 2 minutes later, is the decision from David Moyes to make the double substitution. I believe he was reacting to what was going on. And at that point, like we're talking about, this is when I'm thinking we needed to counter that and bring on the strikers then, but he did not, as we've already talked about. Then you have, again, this situation. Let's go right there, Max, and I'll stop with you because Mike already brought this up. Let's talk about Tosin because we're not great on set pieces, but he's been a threat, and this was unfortunate that this just went over in the 72nd minute. Your thoughts?
It's a tough one for him because I think he expects Anderson to get ahead on it, and it comes to him very quickly. It's unsighted in a large part, but it's a free header, and you have to be knocking that one down. It just throws over the crossbar, but even if he gets that a little bit lower, you force him to make a save. You might spill the ball, might fall to anybody. And, Tosin knows this because he had that header, at Newcastle, which ricocheted off Matt Ritchie and went in for an own goal. That's the value of getting things on target or at least giving him a shot to have a lucky bounce. But when you just don't get your technique right and head over, you're not going to make your own luck. That's a big issue with Fulham is we don't really make our own luck.
Okay, very good. All right. Now
I want to mention quickly the Moyes substitution.
That's a Goldman.
Weren't they awful? I mean, Mark Noble on and Yarmolenko. I think Yarmolenko was absolutely anonymous. And Mark Noble, he's a dinosaur.
I was surprised by that move. I'm glad that you brought that up.
They were really weird.
I was very surprised by bringing on Mark Noble because when I talked to Bob Ballard the first time the teams met, he basically said that Noble was just, again, kind of near the end of it and just someone that he could see being a substitute, but is just not the same player, Max.
Yeah. It was odd they went on because normally when, the opposition makes subs, you notice a difference and Fulham sit back. But we almost kind of continued on and I'd even argue got better after West Ham made those subs. So that was the strange thing to see.
Okay, very good. All right. Mike, back to you. I'm just going to mention some more key moments, and I think you're going to see a theme in what I'm going to be mentioning as our opportunities. So in the 76th minute, Lookman's shot just wide from a free kick. Then you have 2 minutes later, guys, the opportunity from Cavallero on a play for him, but as Mike said, not a striker. It goes over. Then you have the double substitution, which we can talk about in a bit as well. Then you have the opportunity for Mitro that goes wide. In the 84th minute, you have a shot by Anguissa. 87th minute, Ruben Loftus-Cheek's header goes over. And then you have the opportunity in the 89th minute from Ruben Loftus-Cheek that just goes wide. Mike, over to you. What I just read to you is this close, right? This close, but not able to get it done. It's being close, but not, again, just not good enough. And all those opportunities, just not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, I probably made a great mistake earlier about Cavs. Yeah, it was second half, wasn't it? I don't know why I kept saying that, but that's it. It's in, stamped on my brain how bad it is. Yeah, I mean, we had the chances. I thought, Creek's chance was a really, really good chance. Just get it over that keeper. This is your win all the Fulham fans over moment, and didn't quite do it. Lookman's free kick, I don't really think it was troubling anyone. But I thought Mitchell's shot was decent. I thought Anguissa's shot was decent as well. But it's interesting if you look at a match timeline of which I posted earlier from one of the accounts. It just shows that last 15 minutes where suddenly we were creating better chances.
Yep.
And lo and behold, it's after we've made 2 attacking substitutes. So if the tactic is to just, hold out and try and nick something at the end, then you can do that when you've banked a load of points. If we were in Brighton's position or Newcastle's position on 25 or whatever it is, then yes, you can do that and give these guys only 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's why, the substitute, everyone on my timeline from 60 minutes was saying, make a sub.
Right.
And, I was glad it was a double sub. That was nice to see. We had chances. But I go back to the point I made in the opening bit, which is, some of those players, they need more than one chance to get one goal. And, if they're only going to get, low-rated chances, if you like, then they're not going to score. They're just not. It's just not in their makeup. It's not their fault. it's just the type of player they are. And
well, let me ask you this, Mike, because you've talked about Fulham needing a focal point. Is this also part of their issues? Is that they don't have a focal point? There's so much pressure on them individually, and if you have Mitro in there or Maja in there, they become the focal point, and then things could open up for the other players then to get better opportunities. It's kind of like a domino effect.
Well, let's say you're Robinson, you're going down the left and you're ready to cross it in, and who do you see in the middle? It's Cavallero or Mitro. Who do you want to cross the ball to? No, seriously, I mean, I know he scored a goal with a header, but, and if I'm a defender, right, you can have two answers to this.
Yep.
I'm a defender. Who do you want to mark against? Cavallero, who's nippy and all that kind of stuff, or do you want Mitro, who is big and strong and free kicks and he can even get players sent off by falling to the ground.
We'll talk about that too.
But that's a focal point. Doesn't always necessarily. It just has to be someone who needs two players on him, who scares other teams, even if he's not playing very well. I mean, you can be on the worst form run ever, but if you come on the pitch and you're renowned for being a striker, you're going to have your eye on him as a defender.
But Mike, that's a great point, because if you're a defender, are you fearing Cavallero or are you fearing Mitro? You're fearing Mitro. You're not fearing Cavallero. You just feel that you can do your job. You might be fearing Mitro, and you might be more concerned with what he can offer than Cavallero. I think that's where you're going on it, right?
Yeah, but we all know. Yeah, exactly. But we also know, there's lots of comments about, if we play these guys up front, then we have to, make it weaker at the back. But I mean, do we really see Cavallero anywhere near the back now when he's playing?
No.
Is he working hard in the centre of midfield to stop? Yeah, of course he isn't. He's playing as a striker. Okay, Mitro doesn't have the pace of Cavallero, say, to run down, but he still runs the channels. He still works his socks off. So it's not like we're playing 11 defenders. We're playing 7 at times, but we need. It's a cliche, but he needs to take the handbrake off.
Yeah,
we need to be more positive and try and get 1 or 2 goals. I mean, the odds are we're still going to let a goal in. We're still a little bit fragile in that area, but we need to be more positive. The mindset has to be to attack from the off, really, and get goals, and then sit back, for Christ's sake.
Okay, and that's the conundrum, and I want to go to Max because I want to get his thoughts on all of this. Is that, like you said, Mike, and we talked about this on Full Time, it feels like Parker, who, again, I think he's evolved somewhat, but I think he's also just the way he is. He is conservative in nature. And I truly believe, Mike, that in this match, and Emilio and I were talking about, we think that in his mind he's thinking, well, maybe we can nick a goal, as you said. I don't have to make the change. Then he realizes time's running out and he makes the change instead of being more aggressive 20 minutes before that. That's really, for me, the issue with Parker, is that I think he believes in his philosophy, and then when it doesn't work, then he'll make the change. But it just seems too late, Mike. And I would like him to maybe evolve to the point where he can be a little bit more forward-thinking, more aggressive, instead of safety first all the time. Because right now, safety first isn't going to keep us in this league. I think that's the rub.
But, I mean, you two might be able to help me out here a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty sure on the coverage yesterday, from the moment Moyes made that sub, they must have cut to Parker and Wells discussing on the side of, for a good 10, 15 minutes there. And you're thinking,
waiting for them to make the substitution, Mike.
And just discussing it, divvying a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Max, over to you. That's actually a great point by Mike, the coverage, because they kept switching to Scott Parker and Wells, and they were talking about it in Stuart Gray, because I think that they were thinking that they were going to be making a substitution when they kept cutting to them, but they weren't. They kept talking about it, and it waited to the 79th minute, Max. So your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, it was a shame. And, as Mike's mentioned, it's like you can't expect players just for the first chance on the pitch to score. It's unrealistic for the players we have. Even for Mitrovic, who's I think probably our best finisher, on the form he's in, you can't expect him to score his first chance. Give them, allow them to succeed. As a manager, that's your role. So let your players be the best they can be.
Right.
And by throwing your 2 strikers in with 15 minutes to go, that's not maximizing their chance for success. That's almost heaping more pressure on them and fewer chances. That's just not good management, in my opinion. Okay. What I would say about Mitrovic, though, and I think Mike made a good point, that as the match went on, the higher quality chances went up. 100% true.
Yeah, he is right.
Where was Mitrovic when those chances were happening? His strike was on the 18-yard box. And when he set up Loftus-Cheek for, I think, our other best chance towards the end, he's also in the 18-yard box, letting it off back to goal. We're not seeing Mitrovic making those runs into the 6-yard box. We're not seeing an aggressive Mitrovic who's always in the area. Sometimes he's actually on the wing. Other times he's holding back towards the edge. That's what's confusing me most about Mitro's play, is that you look at his goals last season. This is posted on Twitter this morning. Everything is almost right in that 6-yard box. Poacher's goals. I think a factor of it is Premier League defenses are just better than Championship. But there's something about his movement and his runs that aren't as aggressive, aren't as tenacious, and I think that's a lack of confidence. He's not getting in those positions.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think part of it is he's trying to be a team player, get more players involved, and that's where it's coming from? Instead of thinking, I'm a striker,
you're being too generous.
First.
Mitrovic doesn't think like that. He thinks about goals.
Okay. Mike, your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Max on that, or do you see my point that maybe he's trying to do more as a team player, get more players involved? Because we are seeing some of that. But Max brings up a good point. Why isn't he closer to goal?
Well, I think that video is brilliant, and I did start counting the number of goals he scored from about 7 yards. And it was a good 3 quarters. I'm pretty sure of it. I mean, one of the issues is the way we play. So, you think back to Slav's team who went down the wings and pulled the ball back. And a lot of the goals last year have Brian's crosses, which we're not seeing. And it's better defences. Of course it is. But I'd also add on Mitrovic, you said that he was involved on the edge of the box. That's a focal point type of thing. That's a pass to runners as well, which we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But also Mitrovic, throughout the squad, has the highest assist rate per 90 minutes, expected assists. Okay. Wow. So he doesn't have to score all the time. It's assists as well that make it different. And, that is why, for me, he is key. And allow him to play himself back into form. Yes, he's had 2 games with mixed results. Okay. But I did tweet something yesterday. There are certain players who have been allowed half a dozen games of poor performances to find that, and even fans are guilty of it. Oh, yeah, well, he's playing himself back into form. Okay, we'll give a player more than 10 minutes to play himself back into form, eh?
Right.
So that's my frustration with the whole thing with Mitrovic. But the more he plays, and again, let's go back to the point. There's an awful lot of new players in that team as well. So it is all about getting used to playing with each other.
Right.
And yes, you can do as much as you like on the training ground, but in a proper match practice, he's how many minutes has he played on the pitch with Loftus-Cheek? How many minutes has he played, with Lookman? Because let's remember, they came in late. Mitrovic was playing, then he was dropped, and then they had all those sort of that run of games. So, actual minutes on the pitch with some of these guys, it's all about partnerships and as well, and we're not seeing a lot of that.
I think that, like you said, the chemistry, Mike, I think that takes time. And as people keep mentioning to me, because me, I'm a positive guy. We're running out of matches. And I actually think it's going to click. But that chemistry, it just does take a while. And that's a good point by you. All right, guys, we have to talk about it because it's funny. I'm watching the commentary over here in America. You saw the same thing, Max. All the focus was on the red card. Instead of the match, it was all about the red card. So let's talk about it. Your thoughts on the red card? I said on full time that it wasn't a red card. All this with Mitro, did he, he still got hit in the face. I mean, that's legitimate. I don't think he's faking there, but at all. And I think it's pretty obvious that Mitro didn't think it was a red card by his actions after that. But let's just talk about it because it's the talking point everywhere. The red card. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I can agree. It was so frustrating that all anyone wants to talk about is sending off. In my opinion, that's just West Ham fans trying to cover up their abysmal performance. Because that's all the that's all the Hammers fans want to talk about is, Souček shouldn't be. Get out of here. I mean, you played terrible out there. Absolutely, following up your great run of form. You could have gone fourth with the win. So how do you obscure from that? You talk about the sending off. I think people are being very harsh on Mitrovic. He got elbowed in the face.
That's my point on it. He did get elbowed in the face. And I actually had a discussion with someone that was still saying, well, come on, he's a big guy. I'm it's more than being a big guy. He got hit in the face.
Man would have fell, and Souček is a tall guy as well. I think Mike Dean, people hate Mike Dean. That's one thing you have to understand about this. If this is not some random ref, this is Mike Dean. He's very polarizing. You know what? It shouldn't have taken that long with VAR. That's another thing people are getting upset about, is that it took, 5 minutes for him to look at it. And I think it is probably true. If it's a sending off, you'll know right away.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not in the mood to be on this podcast to be charitable to West Ham and say, I think he deserved the red card. You look what Abubakar Kamara did against Crystal Palace. I don't think there's any intent to hurt the player there, but it was a nasty challenge. Same thing as Souček. There's no intent to hurt Mitrovic, but you raise your elbow like that and you swing it at someone's face in a football match, you have to be prepared for the consequences. So I'm not going to say it was a definite red card, but I can see why it was given. And West Ham fans should probably stop moaning and focus on why a team couldn't beat the third worst team in the league.
Oh, wow. Very interesting there, Max. Okay. Mike, your thoughts on this? I don't think it's a red card, but I also don't think that Mitro was faking because he went down. And this is the argument that I heard from a good friend of mine, that he does a lot of theatrics, we'll just say. He does some diving, which I'm not a fan of, that maybe this is just a part of that. I think this is separate. I think he gets hit in the face and goes down, and I think it's legit, but I don't think it's a red card.
I mean, diving or making the most of everything, that's a modern thing as well, isn't it? Or however long, last 10, 20 years, whatever. Yeah. Mitrovic does go down like that. We've seen him, but it is in the face. I have no idea how hard it was. It's a little bit inconclusive, but in the end, he went down, and it's an elbow to the face. It's a sending off, whatever you like. And the rules are, it doesn't matter what the opposition or whoever says, no, it's not a bad tackle or it's not a sending off ref. If the ref decides, he has to make the decision, from his point of view, not what other players on the pitch say. So by the letter of the law, it's probably a sending off. 1 minute from the end of the game and VAR as well and everything else. Of course it isn't, is it?
Well, what's interesting about it, Mike, how long did it take him to make this decision? He kept looking, because we all saw the video of it. He looked at it. It had to have been like a dozen different views of it.
It's just, well, I mean, that's fair. We could have a whole show on VAR. I mean, from it, it's a sending off, but if he hadn't gone off, I wouldn't have been up in arms, even if that was the first.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cared.
But Mitrovic goes down. So, it must have hurt, and you can't do that. Even if, you can't say whether it's accidental or not. It is a weird thing he does there. Mitrovic pushes him and he shrugs him off like that, and he catches him. But, you've given the ref a decision to make.
Yeah. So, agreed, Mike. Agreed. Good stuff. All right, guys. Go ahead.
Sorry, go back. What Max says, exactly. Are any of the pundits or anyone else talking about either how well Fulham played or how poor West Ham were?
Neither. No, I've heard neither.
Distraction tactics,
Listen, Mike, I watched the commentary afterwards, and I'm just telling you, it was all about the red card. I didn't hear much to do about how poorly West Ham played. I heard a little bit about how Fulham played, that they were nice on the eyes. Max probably heard the exact same thing, but again, it comes down to finishing as we're talking about. But beyond that, so much of the focus was on this red card. So much of the focus was on VAR. And I wish it was actually on the match, and it really wasn't. Would you agree with my assessment of that, Max?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the way television is. It's what gets the views, and people love to talk about, controversy. And this is controversial. Has Mike Dean involved? It's VAR. It ticks all the boxes. But
it was such a small part of this match.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. I mean, I tweeted something, and one of my friends who's not a Fulham supporter, reply like, "Oh, what a terrible VAR decision." It's like it didn't affect the match at all.
No,
that's that. I wouldn't even include that in a post-match tweet because it was so inconsequential to the overall result that I don't care too much about it. And obviously, West Ham fans will care because Souček is their best attacking player in recent weeks, and he'll be out for 3 matches if this stands. So I understand why they care about it, but no, in all intents and purposes, it wasn't really that big of a deal.
No, it definitely wasn't, and so much was made of it, and it's a sensational topic whenever you bring up VAR and then these situations in a red card. But again, it's such a small part of this match. But I wanted to mention it because it's been blown up out of proportion, and it drove me nuts after the match. Okay, guys, I want both of you give your thoughts on man of the match. Mike, to you first.
Well, some of my followers would be quite surprised by this, but actually it was Loftus-Cheek for me. I thought he was a consistent player in the team. But still a long way to go to totally win me over. But yeah, for yesterday, I'd give it to him.
Okay, and I already have a comment from my friend Chris. He says he agrees with you, Mike. So there you go on that. How about you, Max?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Mike said.
Wow.
And the commenters would both say Loftus-Cheek. I think he was our brightest attacking outlet. And the difference for me was, he would receive the ball from the defenders, as you mentioned, from Tosin or Anderson, and turn and run at the defense at West Ham. And he made runs in behind, and he spread the play, and it was a confident performance. And it also, the thing Loftus-Cheek does, he'll carry the ball, 50, 60 yards up the pitch and get fouled and get us a free kick in dangerous positions. That happened
he did that
twice.
Yes.
That's something we need to kind of ease the pressure when we're kind of under the cosh. He's showing his attributes now. And of course, no goal. We all know that. I had to say it though, because you can't get someone in a match.
He said it's coming.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. That's all I can say. But again, it will be too late. No matter what happens, it'll be too late. But at least we'll see some good football for the relegation party for the next couple months.
Facts.
And the reason I say that, and I think I'm so glad Mike's on the show.
Okay.
Because I kind of delude myself for a couple hours every day thinking, we'll win some matches and it will all fall together. Mike Gregg's Twitter account keeps me sane because he's making the points.
Well, because Mike has the stats. Mike has all the stats.
Look at this, Russ.
Yes.
The teams above us are getting wins.
Oh, I know.
The biggest argument against us staying up is the fact that teams like Newcastle, Burnley, etc., are on 22 to 25 points.
Yep.
If we're to stay up, we're targeting 38 to 39. That's already a small miracle to us to achieve that points. What's an even bigger miracle is that the teams above us have to essentially lose around 10 matches or something. Like they can only win 3 or 4 more matches the rest of the season. And when they're getting wins at places like Everton, places like Liverpool.
Oh, did we lose Max for a second there? Mike, you're still with me though, right?
Yeah, he was on a roll. He
was on a roll.
No.
Oh, wow.
Am I back? I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no.
You're back. What was the last thing you guys heard? There's a snowstorm going on in Philadelphia right now. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, again, I guess it was a snowstorm that caused a little glitch there, Max. I don't even remember where you left off.
Mike, I guess I'll
remember.
Yeah, no, you absolutely spot on there.
You were on a roll.
I can just quickly summarize because I think, but I'll just say the teams above us have to be on absolutely abysmal form for us to have any chance of staying up, and that's a difficult thing to concede.
Okay, and if you want statistics on Fulham's chances, Mike is very good with his stats, and you've always been good with that, Mike. And again, you're just giving us the proof. And even though I'm still one that believes in the Great Escape too, and based on the players, I didn't feel like that 2 years ago. So again, for me, it's what I'm watching, and I've heard this. Well, I can't talk about good performances because it's about the points. And I totally agree that it's not that it is about the points. Totally agree with that. But I think my only point on the performances is that I can see it clicking, but Mike, we know there's only 15 matches left. So it could click, but it might be too late. And I think that's kind of where you're going. And Max's point, we need a lot of help.
Yeah, I mean, it's just difficult to. I mean, Max was absolutely spot on there when you're talking about us catching teams. So we got to play realistically. We have to play like
I think it's the 9th, right?
9th at the moment. It's the 9th best team for the rest of the season. So if you just did a season of 16 games, we have to be the 9th best one. Okay, and people go, "Oh yeah, we can do that. We're just a striker away." But Max is right as well. I mean, Newcastle, what are they on, 25 or whatever it is? Let's say that, yeah. So, and they've got 15 games left or 16, whatever. So even if they only get a point a game, if they play just a little bit worse than we are, they will still reach that points. So, you look at Sheffield United, who everyone's been going, they're going to be worse than Derby and all that. They've still picked up, 11 points?
Yep.
Okay. So even over that kind of stretch of games, you're still going to pick up points, even if you're the worst team. So, I'm looking at our form now. Last 10 games, 7 points and 5 goals we've scored. Now, we've only let in 9, that's true. So we've got to switch that. You've got to go from 7 to having 15 points in 10 games, 16 in 10 games. And that is the switch we've got to do. It's not impossible.
Right.
But
well, we've seen it. I mean, there is proof that it's happened, but
it only works if we beat Burnley twice. That's my view.
I saw that. And that actually is key. That's actually a good point, Mike, because then it could be in play. But again, you have to beat them twice. That's a very good point. And, to be in a position to potentially have it all on the line against Newcastle. Boy, would I love it all on the line against Newcastle. But we will see. Guys, before we go, final thoughts? Mr. Cohen?
Yeah.
I think you're okay now.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No snowstorm issue right now. So.
What I would say is kind of taking a step back from everything. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. Did we go up too soon in some ways, which is an odd thing to say because, of course, everyone wants to bounce right back up to the Premier League. And honestly, if we hadn't, Park would have been sacked. But you look at the teams who are thriving in the Premier League when they go up. It's a team like Leeds. Yep. Leeds United essentially had a Premier League side in the Championship, and they slotted right in this season, with great investment. For us, Mike brought back some good debates about what is happening last season. Last season in the Championship, we were having those matches away to Charlton, drawing 0-0, not looking like we were scoring, only winning matches by 1 goal. We really squeaked through in the playoffs into the playoff final. This wasn't a team that was taking the Championship by storm. So in many ways, are we really surprised that we can't cut it in the top flight? And of course, with the squad, we left ourselves with a massive mountain to climb in terms of the investment we had. It just seems every time we get back up to the top flight, it's a mountain to climb. And just when we're on the precipice of returning this club to where it deserves to be, the Premier League, a stable club, it's always a step too far. And that's what's really bringing me down, is that I love Fulham. I love Fulham no matter what division we're in. I'll still be a fan. I'll still follow. But this club, to be successful, I think it has potential to be the stable Premier League club, even pushing top 10.
Yep.
It's so hard to see a future forward, even in the next decade, where that can happen if we continue to be a yo-yo club.
Okay.
And that just is the big picture, and that to me is really saddening because I love the Championship when we win matches.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Championship.
We want to be in the top flight.
But I would rather
we
be
want
here.
to be winning in the top flight. And even I think this is such a good chance of staying up in terms of the players we have and the fact that we're not getting blown out every match. But even this isn't enough. And it asked me to think, when will it be enough? What will be enough for us to stay in this division, which is growing tougher and tougher by the year?
Okay. I just want to share this comment before I go to Mike and we wrap it up. It's funny because Chris has gone back and forth with me for, I want to say, a year now about Parker Ball. Can't stand Parker Ball. Now he's coming out and saying it's so much better than Parker Ball. I had to just share this. Thank you, Chris, because I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten from you about Parker Ball. So for you to say this is better than Parker Ball actually made my day. Mike, over to you. Any final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I mean, Max, we could do a show just on what you just said there. I'm more than happy to do that at some stage. What I want to say is that in the end, we want wins. You want your team to win. It's not about, I find it quite incredible. And maybe it's because we're not in the stadium, but, we're not asking for Parker to get the sack or anything like that. There isn't a groundswell of that at all. There is incredible frustration with him. Absolutely. And we're so far behind now, 8 points. It looks like a mountain, but there is still a chance. We're not getting tonked, and it is just we've spoken about it before, Russ. That 10% change.
Yes,
just that little bit more that can turn those draws into wins. And but I do think, and I said it 5-10 minutes ago, it is the Burnley games for me. I think it's Wednesday. I think, or very soon, and we have to win that. There's no ifs, no buts, nothing like that. It's absolute must win. It's in the dictionary. Burnley, that game.
Okay, very good. Great stuff. Great show. This has been a great show. I want to mention that we're going to be having a special show of Cottage Talk maybe next week or the following week where we're going to be talking about football. We're going to be talking about social media and also mental health, all intertwined together. We're going to do a special show on this. I'm going to have some very good guests joining us for co-hosts. We're going to have a really honest discussion of how supporting Fulham affects us positively and negatively, and how social media affects us positively and negatively with our mental health. And I think it's going to be a constructive show. I'm looking forward to doing it. So I just want to mention that before we go. Also, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm trying to get this off the ground. We don't have that many subscribers. I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. For Mike Gregg and Max Cohen, I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.